Welcome to the SportsMax Zone on this Friday. It is, always our pleasure to have you with us as we talk about the big stories in sport. None bigger than the development earlier on this Friday Caribbean time, where we saw the West Indies bow out of the ICC T20 World Cup at the qualification stage. Before we get into the segment proper and introduce our guest, let's take some voice notes. We've been flooded with voice notes from our viewers reacting to the Windies' performance and the outcome of their sojourn in Australia, and we just wanted to share a few of them with you. Usually we play voice notes in the interactive segment, but today we've gotten so many that it is needful for us to give you some of them now. So let's go, Mr. Producer. May it please you to play the first one.
I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to read about it. As a matter of fact, I ain't go out my house for the day because I don't want to hear no conversation about it. I in my bed. I ain't coming off my bed today.
Good evening, SportsMax. Paul, Trinidad. We, the supporters, cannot be waiting all the time figuring out which West Indies team coming out on the field today. I think we are not consistent. The results reflect the way we play, and we don't deserve to be in that tournament. The only bad thing about it is that I didn't get enough sleep last night studying this West Indies team. I take an rest.
Kamali Miller from Westchester, Portmore. Very, very, very disappointed and gutted that West Indies didn't make the T20 World Cup. I know they would have performed way above in which they did in the qualifiers. However, all team came out firing on all cylinders, and West Indies caught lacking. So definitely disappointed, and they have to come way stronger next year, next T20.
SportsMax, good evening. Double the blessed Trini here. Wow, this is hurtful. I'm deflated. I'm hurt, disappointed. This is the equivalent of Brazil not qualifying for the World Cup, or even worse than that. But I guess sometimes you go up only after you hit the bottom end. So let's hope that's the case.
The king of optimism. When the king of optimism, double blessed Trini, is as downcast as that, then you know that today's result is really hurting West Indies, the West Indies cricket loving public. And if you are a cynic, you can take a lot of mirth from what happened. If you were looking at things from a certain perspective and you saw this outcome, you could allow yourself a chuckle. But at the end of the day, we're all West Indians. And those of us who chuckle, those of you who will chuckle, who will find mirth in the situation, are only doing so to save face, are only doing so to prevent yourself from tumbling down a precipice of despondency and sadness that you don't believe that you should allow yourself to suffer that fate. So you laugh, you chuckle, to take the pain away. Anyway, the West Indies have recorded their worst ever performance at the T20 World Cup. Nicholas Pooran and his men, in case you didn't know, were booted from the competition after going down by 9 wickets to Ireland in their final qualifier on Friday in Hobart, that's capital of the Australian island state of Tasmania. Batting first, the Windies meandered to 146 for 5, Brandon King stroking an unbeaten of 62 off 48 balls. Johnson Charles, with 24 off 18 balls, was the next highest scorer. Player of the match, Gareth Delaney, garroted the West Indies batsmen, finishing with 3 for 16 from his 4 overs. Paul Sterling then struck an unbeaten 66 with Lorcan, while Lorcan Tucker made an unbeaten 45 to guide the Irishmen to, listen to this, a 9-wicket win. Their total, 150 for 1 of 17.3 overs. Fazeer Mohammed joins us now. Fazeer, I don't want you to think we're inviting you to a funeral, because we really are not. But Fazeer, by any measure, today is but another sad day in West Indies cricket.
It is, and good evening, Mr. Ponzi scheme. Good evening, Lee. It looks like you're getting ready for Atletico Madrid versus Liverpool rather than talking about what has been happening with the West Indies. But yeah, the thing is, I can understand the anger I can understand the sense of depression. But, I mean, if you just look at the trajectory, this was an accident waiting to happen. You only have to look at, and credit to Sandy Roberts, because Sandy has been pilloried left, right, and center for speaking out. You know, the narrative is often, oh, he's so negative, or this one is so negative. You know, you need to be positive, or well, we can't go further down, but then we do. And now we're hearing about, okay, the president of Cricket West Indies has issued a statement talking about, you know, investigation and post-mortem and so on. Did we have one when we finished second to last as defending champions a year ago in the main grouping? Have we really not just talked about it? Have we done anything meaningful about the situation in West Indies cricket? Because it's not just the men, because Deandra Dottin has walked away from the West Indies team talking about the team environment. So what has happened here, it's almost, I hesitate to say culmination, because we don't know what's going to happen next. This is a very tough 6-month period coming ahead for West Indies men's cricket, because they've got 2 test matches against Australia in Australia, one of them being a pink ball. Then the West Indies go to South Africa. And we know what happened against South Africa in the Caribbean in St. Lucia in those 2 test matches last year. So by the time we come around to the next Cricket West Indies election, around March of next year, the West Indies could have gone through a really tortuous period, which has started with this elimination.
Fazeer, we're going to come back to what the West Indies the Cricket West Indies president has said. We're going to look at that in just a little bit. But I just want to say a couple of things to you here, just to remind you, not telling you anything. The West Indies, in their 3 games, the 3 opponents that they faced, all had greater partnerships for the first wicket. I think that's significant in terms of starting your innings. And it's not, you don't have to be a clever guy or man or woman to figure that out. The West Indies' best opening partnership was 28. Zimbabwe's was a little bit better at 29. The Scots had put on 55 and the Irish put on 73 for their first wicket. So we couldn't get anything substantial going on. 2 of our 3 rivals substantially more than what we did, and Zimbabwe by just a tick. And if you take in isolation, Fazeer, the contribution of players who were supposed to be our main men with the batting, and it's not as if we're criticizing individuals, we're just looking at the tail of the tape and reading what the tape says. Kyle Mears in 3 games, 13, 20, and 1. Yeah? Johnson Charles, 45 and 24 in his 2 games. Evan Lewis, 13, 14, 15. Nicholas Pooran, the captain, 7, 5, and 13. I'll stop at Rovman Powell, 28, 5, and 6. My goodness, Fazeer, where's that going? Where's that going to take any team?
Again, you know, that's why I referenced last year, because we had the same thing looking at the numbers from Chris Gayle, Dwayne Bravo, Kyron Pollard, and the other key performers. At that time, did we do anything? Did we really bring about any sort of change? So the point that you're making, and you know, you said that it's not about criticizing individuals. We should criticize individuals when it comes to issues of performance, because if we were to fall flat on the job here at SportsMax for any reason, for be unprofessional, we deserve to be criticized, because it is supposed to be a professional environment. The fact of the matter is that the real concern is that, and I've mentioned this before, not because it's any visionary statement, because it's obvious. We're talking about almost 30 years of mediocrity. The West Indies are reaching a point where it's almost as if mediocrity has been normalized. So you average 30 in first-class cricket, you're a sure pick for the test team. You get a few more runs in a one day, you have the one good match here and there, you're the new hope. You talk about the T20 environment, notwithstanding all of the poor results, we're encouraged to think positive, look forward. This is our game, we're the 2-time winners, when all the indicators are pointing in the opposite direction, and then you're told you're being negative. Then you have, but I'll leave it to you to get to the president's statement. But the fact of the matter is, George, that if you're talking about a performance-based environment, that does not include West Indies cricket, because we do not have an environment that insists upon the highest standards either on or off the field. And again, the classic evidence of that was last year's debacle in the UAE, followed by this one. Changing 10 players to wholesale changes doesn't automatically bring about a change in results if you haven't changed the culture that feels comfortable in mediocrity.
Faz, Madan Lal, former Indian cricketer, tweeted right after the game that the West Indies players seem happy to be playing in the T20 leagues, in the IPL, I guess across the world, but seem to lack passion when it comes to playing for the West Indies. Could that be a critical factor in what we're seeing? And it's not, I remember, I think we had a discussion earlier this year as well about the lack of passion and how it affects teams like the West Indies. We've seen it in South Africa and some of the smaller market teams. Could that be a factor where the money is now beginning to take away from the loyalty, the national pride? I use that term, of course, across the Caribbean. That's affecting the West Indies players, do you think?
Could be a factor, especially now, with so many players thinking in terms of their own careers, first of all. I mean, Shimron Hetmyer opted to miss 2 opportunities to be with the team for his own personal reasons. Andre Russell stated on this very platform that he's going to make himself available for the West Indies on his own terms. I'm not implying by any suggestion that players go out there not wishing to perform, not wishing to give up their best, playing for the West Indies. Because quite obviously, some of them want to do well, want to give up their best, want to excel playing for the West Indies. For some of them, it means a lot to play for the West Indies. But again, when you have a situation which are clearly, as clear as day, does not send the message about an insistence on the highest standards of not just performance, but commitment, which is why I referenced the Evan Lewis situation. If you've got an individual who has opted not to make himself available for 12 months since the last World T20, and then pops up and says, I'm available, I'm committed, and you pick him, what message are you sending to those who might be trying, to those who might be eager to play, to those who might want to play for the West Indies? Aren't you sending the message that you can pick and choose and we'll have your back because you're a big name player? Hasn't that been the narrative of Cricket West Indies over the last couple of years? Getting carried away with the big name players, wanting to have an official farewell for Chris Gayle when he didn't merit selection and then backpedaling from it? This has been a constant narrative, as if we are supposed to be scared to talk about performance-based cricket in an environment where it seems that, to your point, Leighton, that yes, these players seem to excel in the T20 environments. They're paid very well, they're treated very well. Many of them think they're treated better than they are playing for the West Indies. But has Cricket West Indies done enough to convey to players coming through the ranks in West Indies cricket, male or female, what it means to play for the West Indies more than anything else? And I think that they haven't done enough by a long way.
Yep. Just before I just wanted to point something out. One other thing, Faz. I don't normally quote these guys that write these articles. I do my own analysis. But I found this to be telling of the game played earlier today. And it is that in the first 6 overs, the West Indies played out 16 the first 5 overs, the West Indies played out 16 dot balls. And of the 32 runs that they scored in those first 5 overs, 16 of them came from 1 over. The Irish, in the first 6 overs they faced, 64 runs. And we thought that the West Indies were the power hitters. The Irish had 6 fours and 4 sixes in those first 6 overs. And then the power play, Jace the holder at this tournament is averaging 7.92, giving away 7.92 runs per over in the power play. He wasn't used. Pooran instead went to Odin Smith,
who was the most expensive,
who in the power play is giving away 11.18 runs per over. Fazeer, I say these things because I'm asking, all right, a coach at this level isn't going to tell you how to keep your head over the stroke and to be technically correct and all that. They're talking about game strategy and looking at trends, looking at numbers, and trying to fashion approaches to counter the strengths of the opposition and realizing where weaknesses are and trying to accommodate for those weaknesses. These things that I just read to you, especially the use of holder in the power play, that's what you expect a coach to do. So what was Phil Simmons in Australia doing, especially Fazeer, after he said that, oh, my batsmen are unprofessional in their approach? Who should correct that unprofessionalism? Is it you who are in TNT, who's supposed to postulate something that the batsmen should take on as professionalism and reflect that in their batting? Isn't the man who's in charge of the strategy and preparation of the team, isn't he responsible for sitting down with his captain and fixing these technical things?
Of course, that's not even a question. These things are obvious, but again, just to put it in context, Nicholas Pooran said after the last T20 series against New Zealand in a media conference, he's tired people talking to him about dot balls and strike rates. What does that tell you about the failure to understand the very fundamentals of the T20 format? And again, even if you go with the power hitting narrative and so on, as you said correctly, the Ireland beat us at that game too. So the point is that, and again, quickly, if you would allow me, just to reference that statement from Ricky Skerritt, in which he made those points about the ongoing inability of our batsmen to prevail over opposing slow bowling. The untimely shot selections seem to be deeply embedded in T20 batting culture. Why are we hearing this now? So all of a sudden, Cricket West Indies president is a cricket analyst? Isn't that reinforcing what we've known for some time? But again, the apologists in and around Cricket West Indies don't want to say it because it's not the right message that you're sending. That's all about positive narratives, positive narratives, positive narratives. This is the classic case of the emperor with no clothes. And never mind, we were disrobed in the UAE last year. And it's happened again in an even more embarrassing context. You're going to get the same regional foolishness about let's have a grand consultation, which again, based on the track record, will achieve nothing.
Well, Fazeer, let me ask you this, because, you know, Ricky Skerritt replaced Dave Cameron and then fired the coaches that were at the time. And of course, Dave Cameron sent out a social media post this morning about the worst performance by a West Indies cricket team. Does these performances, because it's not just the one, put Ricky Skerritt's presidency into serious question? The fact that he promised at the outset to change the mindset, change the dynamics of West Indies cricket and bring West Indies cricket back to the days of old.
Of course it does, because it's a performance-based mindset. And no one is pretending, Leighton, that you're going to resolve this thing in the space of a couple of years in office or 4 years in office. It's sort of like Trinidad and Tobago netball, which has been in the doldrums forever. When we were joint world champions in 1979. The fact of the matter is, are we really serious about fixing this thing? And Dave Cameron taking a cheap shot in this situation doesn't really assist anything other than to maybe burnish his own ego, if it needs any more burnishing. The fact of the matter is that we've fired enough players, we've fired enough coaches, we've fired enough managers, we've changed enough presidents, we've changed enough coaches, we've changed everyone, chairman of selectors, everyone. And yes, even if these Simmons and Pooran need to be sacked as coach and captain respectively, can we say that we are really interested in addressing the root causes of problems in our cricket, that we're going to rectify them, not tomorrow morning, not for the next tournament, but for the medium to long term? Are we really interested in fixing it, or are we going to just weep and wail, talk about we can't go any lower and so on, and say, well, the only way is up from now on, only to fall short again?
Let me just give you some quick facts here, Faz. Since October 14, 2019, the West Indies have played 42 ODIs, won 16, lost 26. The T20 record is even worse. 63 matches since October 2019, 122, lost 35, and 6 no results. That's not a record to keep anybody from keeping their jobs, including the people in charge. I mean, I think it speaks for itself how clear this situation is in terms of the autopsy that's going to be done now, to speak about the obvious.
Fazeer, unfortunately, we're out of time. We're going to have to invite you back on Monday. I know the West Indies president saying a thorough post-mortem. I didn't know that there were partial post-mortems done in places. So I wait to see what this thorough post-mortem will entail, if it will be above and beyond what a usual post-mortem serves up. Fazeer, we'll talk in the new week. For now, console yourself with whatever process you use to console yourself in these circumstances, all right?
Indeed, I shall. And as far as waiting for the proper post-mortem, I won't hold my breath.
There you go, my friend. There you go. We take a break on the SportsMax Zone. Back with more after these.
What you say?